we told you we were coming back. Welcome to this special edition of Fat Man Beyond. I'm Kevin Smith.
I'm Marc Bernardin.
Hey!
Hi.
So the other day I got to do an interview with James Gunn. I did a review of Peacemaker, his amazing new show on HBO Max, which I absolutely fucking love. I got to interview James and they cut it into this video that they put out, which was really great. But James, the interview portion in that video was only about 5 minutes. When Dr. Josh Roush shot the interview the night that we shot it, I talked to James for like a half an hour, and it was about like deep cuts, comic book stuff, Snyderverse stuff, writing. He's such a wonderful storyteller, and he's got a big heart and stuff. So I asked him when we were all done, I was like, hey, can we they're only going to use like 5 minutes of our chat. Can I throw the rest of it up on Fat Man Beyond? And he was like, oh man, go for it. I was like, there ain't nothing you want me to pull out? He goes, not at all. So it was a fun discussion. It's a half an hour, and I only wish it was longer and stuff, but it's interesting as fuck. And he's just pure joy at the height of his fucking Jedi powers right now. So we got it for you here. We were going to put it on the show last night when we did Fat Man Beyond, which you can go watch right now, last night's episode. Or we decided it'd probably be better to give it its own standalone thing, man. So this is me and Mark welcoming you and introducing you to a 30-minute interview with the only loaded gun I want in my house, ladies and gentlemen.
Nice wordplay, Kevin.
Thank
Smith.
you very much. A man right at the fucking the sweet spot. He's doing the Lord's work, and he's the bridge between two comic book universes. He's talented as fuck. And Peacemaker on HBO Max, which drops every fucking Thursday. Watch episode 4 right now. The first 4 episodes is an absolute revelation. So without further ado, let's talk to the mind behind it, man. Gentlemen, James Gunn, ladies and gentlemen.
Ooh, I can't wait.
Mr. Gunn, loaded gun. Excellent to speak to you, sir. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. It's been an insane week for me with between shooting and trying to release the show and everything else. So, but I feel good.
The incredible first world problems that you enjoy of making a massive, wonderful new movie while releasing a massive, new, wonderful TV show based on a massive, wonderful movie that you just did last year. You're a busy cat, my friend, and rightfully so.
Yeah, very busy. Yeah.
Let's talk about where Peacemaker comes from. I absolutely love the show. When I first saw the trailer, when I first heard there was going to be a spinoff, I was like, oh, that makes sense. He's cool. Fun character. You can go places with it. When I saw the trailer, I was like, oh, I can't wait. Superheroes cursing. I was almost cursing myself for why didn't I do this? Then I saw the show. And once again, what you do insanely well is give us the populist entertainment that puts us in the seats, and then you sneak a wonderful human story with a soul and emotion under it. And I did not suspect that that's what we were going to be having with Peacemaker. I thought it would just be a fun romp, and it remains a fun romp, but you are having your cake and eating it too at the same time with this story, man. It is next level work. You're always a fantastic writer and a clever one at the very least. But there's something coming out in this work, man, that it seems a little bit deeper and closer to home than we've even seen before. Where's it coming from?
Well, I think it was a couple of things. I think number one, I just really wanted to work with John. But number two, a lot of the stuff I've dealt with are sort of these fables. Like Guardians is a fable about childhood trauma that takes place in outer space. And it's very emotional, but it's in outer space. We don't have to deal with real humans. But Peacemaker has a little bit more to do with, society today, what's going on in our world. What are the kind of people that are, in our world? And so dealing with that social stuff a little bit more, I felt like Peacemaker was a character who gave me an opportunity to deal with that, and giving me the opportunity also to deal with the character of Leo Adebayo, who's played by Danielle Brooks, and the fact that two of them have this sort of, beautiful friendship that they find because it's based strictly on their love or their like for each other as human beings. And I thought that was an interesting dynamic and maybe something that we should talk a little bit more about how people with very, very different belief systems can actually like each other. And I have people in my own life that are like that. People who, believe very differently than I do about politics, about this, about whatever. And instead of being a person that screams at people, thinking that somehow is going to change their mind, can see somebody else's humanity despite their different beliefs.
That's what really is on display when you watch the show. There's a cartoony level of violence and fun, but it's got this incredibly human heart and soul. As I watched the first episode and then went straight into the next three because HBO Max dropped all the first three episodes at once.
Mm-hmm.
My impression I got, or let me ask you, when you went into Suicide Squad, were you thinking Peacemaker series at all? It occurs to me as like you're working with an actor who's so talented that you're like, this is a versatile action figure that I could do a lot of things with. He's fun, and he also knows how to play heart and warmth and stuff. And plus the character being larger than life, you get to play with the archetypes of superheroes while playing with a classic superhero, not even one that you had to create yourself so you can break down. Which was it, chicken or the egg? How did we get to Peacemaker?
The egg, I guess. That means it was definitely John Cena. I mean, it was wanting to work with John again because, listen, this was, the beginning of COVID when I decided to do this. I was lonely. John and I get along extraordinarily well. I thought he'd be a fun guy to make a TV show with. I trust him with my life. He's a truly good individual with a lot of integrity. But I also thought, I saw glimpses of what John was capable of in Peacemaker. We talked a lot about who this guy was, where he came from, how he felt awkward when he's around everybody else, what his dad was like, all of these things we talked about with John. And then I saw glimpses of what John was able to do emotionally or dramatically that we didn't really get to deal with. When we see the big moment in Suicide Squad, without giving a major spoiler away, which anybody that sees Peacemaker is going to be spoiled, there's this humanity in John that he brings to it. And I wanted to deal with that. I thought that is a seed for a whole television series, really.
So it's the humanity that you kind of saw in the character that made you go like, I want to dig deeper. I want to play with that further. Because that is a really wonderful scene in Suicide Squad. It's got power to it. And John, up until that point in the movie, is playing a cartoon. And then suddenly you see the human being underneath. It's so awesome to hear that you saw that and you were like, I want to play deeper with that. Now, you brought the team with you as well, like in terms of the support team, Jen, Steve, so forth and so on.
Yeah.
So is that a moment that's born too while you're making the movie, going like, oh, I could bring these cats with me?
No, I think I started thinking about the Peacemaker show, like, I didn't really, I thought a little bit about it, but then I thought about it I thought about it a lot more while I was editing. And then when Warner Brothers came to me and said, hey, listen, you want to do a TV show? You have any characters you want to spin off? And I said, yeah, definitely Peacemaker. That after that is when I thought, oh, let's put Kanamos and Harcourt in this. Let's build up their story. Let's bring some of these other characters, Viola, as you see, kind of, strengthen some of those relationships a little bit and build on that mythology. Now,
a lot of cats might hear that and go like, wait, they came to him and said, what do you want to do? What rarefied breathing air that he has. Tell the folks at home how one gets to that rarefied breathing air. Like, you're a trauma kid. You began deep with Lloyd and stuff like that. And you're bringing trauma ideas and the fun of those movies into one of the most massive mainstream markets on the planet. The sensibility is still there. Tell cats how hard it is to get from that point to this point.
Well, I mean, listen, it's like I started working when I was, trying to get to this point, 30 years ago almost, and really have spent, I guess, more than 30 years ago, and have spent most of my life trying to be able to do this. So it's taken a lot of effort, really, and a lot of work. I didn't have in my 20s like other people did because I sat in my room, all day writing and watching Kevin Smith movies.
You're very cute.
So, but
you definitely wrote though, and that's a big part of that story is that, and now you live in a world where you're like, they're like, what do you want to do? And you're like, this is the story I'd like to tell. But you worked in a world for a while where you were the guy banging out words for others and happy to do so. But was there always a thought of like, look, I'll write for them, but one day I'm going to direct these?
I wasn't happy to do so. I'm being completely honest with you. It was very difficult being a screenwriter for me. That is, being a screenwriter by itself is not my natural inclination. It was uncomfortable. I can't, my brother does it. He's happy being a screenwriter. That's what he does. But I'm not, I want to direct. I feel like directing is and I'm sure you relate to this. Directing is the final draft of the script.
Yeah.
So turning that over to somebody else, there were really good situations with it, like where, Dawn of the Dead happened and Zack Snyder comes in, does a kick-ass version. Then there were, I had good relationships with a lot of these directors like Raja Gosnell from the Scooby-Doo movies and all this stuff. But always it's different than what I intended. Always, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's just a milky version of what I intended. So I hated it. I hated being a screenwriter was good because I was getting paid, but it was a job and it wasn't the same sort of thing as directing, a feature where I'm putting my whole heart into it and everything I can.
Just to show you how it's always like the grass is always greener and stuff. Like, I remember the weekend that you had, I think it was, what was it, both like Dawn of the Dead and Scooby-Doo, like were the number 1 and 2 movie or something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was like, I was like, this is like, that's it. Like, oh my God. I was a writer director and I was still like, I wish I was that guy, just writing like the biggies for the majors and stuff. And it's so excellent to hear that you're like, look, there was such a hunger that was something that I had to do to get to where I wanted to be. And so I hadn't even thought about until this point that you had written Dawn of the Dead and Zach had directed it. So you had crossover going way back in the day. What I think about when I watch Peacemaker and Suicide Squad is anybody that was ever like, oh, the Snyderverse was too dark or whatever, you proved, validated even, like that universe works. Like the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker take place essentially in that world. And did I read somewhere that did you work with his stunt coordinator or something like that too?
Yeah, I mean, one of Wayne Daglish, who did the stunt coordination on Peacemaker, and I liked him so much that I brought him to Guardians 3 with me, and he's working with Heidi Moneymaker. But he is, he was a guy who I talked to about the gig. We need a good stunt coordinator. There's a lot of action in the show, and it just gets bigger and bigger as the show goes on. And I talked to him immediately. I liked the guy, and he had worked with Zach before. So I talked to Zach and asked him if he was somebody who he thought was good. And Zach sang his praises like to the end of days about how he's really the best. And he said the biggest problem with Wayne is he sets up stunts and does, fight viz with the cameras, and that his crew always has a harder time doing as good of a job as Wayne's fight viz is originally. So that's where, that's pretty big. Obviously Zach's amazing with action. So that was a pretty big compliment.
The storyline that you're telling, it would have been good enough if you were just like, I'm playing with DC action figures and I'm making them smash into each other and curse. I was there for that fucking show from the jump. But the father story that you're telling is insanely compelling. We get a taste of it in the first few episodes, particularly in episode 2 and 3. But like 4 is where it really hits hard. This week's episode coming up is like, it's where you kind of expose your heart. Well, first by exposing Peacemaker's heart. It's an uncomfortable scene to watch his father dress him down so hardcore. And the dude who could like clearly take him out with a punch is affected by it. That's where you get that humanity from John in a wonderful performance beat. I mean, of course, he's working opposite Robert, who's doing a great job, but it's the receiver of that emotional violence that is going to kind of telegraph the performance. It's going to make you feel something there. An amazing scene. How deep does that storyline go? Is that run the entire run of the episode? Yeah,
I mean, I think that's one of his prime relationships in the show. Is Robert's a regular on the show, and he is unrepentant. He's a real asshole. I mean, there's really not. I don't know if I've ever, I think Peter Quill's father is obviously a pretty bad guy. Ego. He killed his mother with cancer, but I think Ego is probably better in some. I mean, Ego at least liked Peter Quill. He wanted to work with him, but I don't think. I think Robert Patrick Augie Smith. He does not like his son. He's got no love for his son, and we find out some reasons for that as the series goes on. But he is a real tough guy, and there isn't much sentimentality in who he is, and he's a racist. He's just a flat out racist. And it is. I mean, that's what to me is interesting is the idea of like I've never seen this story told in this milieu, where it's like, how do you deal with people that don't think the same way you do? It's hard enough when it's like people you're not related to. What if they're people that you share blood with? That was where I was like, oh, this is where he's going to win awards, man. As you're writing it, when does it occur to you how deep you can go with this? Like before you even started, or as you're writing, you're like, ooh, I could do this. I could do this. No, I think before I started it, I knew where it was going. I knew the general story. And there's a lot of others. I mean, I'm so excited for people to see it because it is, I love the whole story through episode 8. And, that's what it feels like. It feels like a gigantic movie so far. It doesn't feel really episodic. It's chapters of a movie. It is. It's one big, 6 hour and change story about this guy and about this ensemble. Really, it is. At the end of the day, it's an ensemble. It's not only Peacemaker. It's also Vigilante, who I love. And you saw episode 4, so you get to see a fantastic scene with Freddie Stromo, who's just amazing in that scene, which I've been waiting for people to see. And then, but also, Harcourt and Danielle Brooks is Leota and Chukwudi Iwuji is Myrn, who is now in Guardians 3. Steve Agee gets his chance to do some actually dramatic stuff throughout the series. And that's his first time that he's ever been able to do that. And fight Judo Master as well to some degree. Yeah, sort of. At least poke him and sneak up behind him. But yeah, he doesn't always. He's not the best fighter in the world, but yeah, he gets a chance to do some action for sure. Let me get geeky for a few seconds. Did I see in episode 4? Is that Bunny on the dash? The bunny that was on Rick's flag shirt? That's right. Yeah, Ultra Bunny. Yeah. That's is Bunny. That and yours? I drew that. Yeah, I drew the shirt. So that comes from that. So we have Ultra Bunny. I think there's there's another scene in which Evan and Amber, the husband and wife, Evan has it on, I think in episode 2 in the hallway. He's got an Ultra Bunny t-shirt, a different design than the Rick flag. So I guess Ultra Bunny is a big cartoon hero. He's in the DCEU. He's Bugs Bunny. I smell a backdoor cartoon series coming, my friend. Very, very smart. Yeah. The references, the side references to the larger DC universe within the world of the DC. What do they call it? The DC Extended Universe or Cinematic Universe? Yeah. The notion that Batmite exists thrilled me no end. And that people know about him, or at least he did. And the fact that Matter Eater Lad was name checked. Like the Aquaman thing is funny, the Wonder Woman thing is funny, but like going deep cuts, that's when, like, as I'm watching the show, I lean forward all delighted because I was like, I was not expecting a Batmite fucking sidebar conversation. And Dowlman. So Dowlman as well. That was pretty fun. I got to say, that was the one thing. Jim Lee was, he read the first few episodes, I think he read all the episodes by that time. And we're sitting down, we're talking about talking about stuff, and he was totally cool with everything. He was loving it. But he goes, well, does this mean that Pat Might's in the DCU? And I'm like, yeah, that's the great part, Jim. He's like, oh, God, okay, I guess.
An interdimensional imp that stands Batman. It's just the perfect breakdown of the character. In terms of your comic book geekiness, you like, I remember when you made the announcement for Suicide Squad and it used the old DC logo, the Ostrander logo. I was like, oh, we're in for something special. And then you put Ostrander himself in a cameo in Squad and stuff.
And he was great.
Wonderful. He did. He actually like legit pulled that line off. He didn't feel stiff.
He was an actor. In his young age, he was an actor. He was like a stage actor. In fact, John Economos is named after his friend who was like his stage manager. I can't remember what John Economos did, but he's a real guy. The name is he's a friend of John Ostrander's.
The Ostrander is the gift that keeps on giving, apparently.
Yeah.
But one of the, some people I think online were like, White Dragon, did he make that up? And it's like, no, this is some deep cuts DC stuff. And he goes back to like Squad, like the first 5-10 issues of Squad. I remember there was a reference to that character. Is that right?
Yeah. I can't remember exactly when White Dragon first came in, but he's a real character. And then, Peacemaker's dad in like the Kupperberg stuff was a Nazi who lived in his head and like was very racist. So
wow.
I kind of combined those two characters into Augie. I mean, John Cena's too young probably to have his dad be an actual Nazi, but
close enough.
Modern day Nazi. Yeah.
It is when I saw in episode 4 the cutaway to the suit, to the White Dragon costume, which like in comics has barely been seen, but like to see a screen accurate version made my fanboy heart soar, even for something so hateful. I was just like, come on, this guy loves this world, man. It is more than apparent that you're treating the DC characters with as much love and affection as you treated the Marvel characters with Guardians. What is your comic book background? How deep does it go?
Oh, it's really deep. I mean, my youthful life was 100% around comic books. I wanted to be a comic book writer and a comic book artist. That's what I wanted to do in all my grade school years. And then when I was in high school, I mean, I always loved movies. I started making movies and stuff, as I was approaching high school. So I had these split loves and was playing in bands. And so I really love all sorts of stuff. But comic books, I'm a huge, huge DC and a Marvel fan and always have been. I mean, I have my favorite characters and things that I know more about than others, but I'm a huge fan of both Marvel and DC comics. It's hard not to be if you really love comic books and you read the different ones. In fact, Kevin, you've written some amazing comic books, by the way. I don't think I've ever told you, but you're a great, great comic book writer, and that's the God's honest truth. Thank you. But there's so much good stuff out there, but a lot of guys who have written for both companies, and it's the same thing. It's the writer. For me, it was a writer. It was the artist. And then secondarily the characters, but there are these characters that seem to have really good luck, such as Daredevil, and Daredevil has gone, especially in like that period, he went from great writer to great writer to great writer. So, but I love them both.
You're handling the material with aplomb. With somebody who clearly has not just affection for the genre. Like I said, you could have delivered you holding, 2 DC action figures, smashing them together, cursing at each other, and that would have been like a wonderful show to watch, at least for me, right up my alley. The fact that you're making a show that like other people can get into, even if you're not into the superhero genre, like there's a human story that's being told at the core of this insanely funny and edgy as fuck show. This show pulls no punches. It's probably one of the least PC things I've seen in the last 10 years, but earns it. It's not like going after one group. It seems to be an equal opportunity offender. Everybody is under the gun, so to speak. And while you can have fun with personalities, your gift has always been that you find the humanity in these people. So even in your villains, you give us, you're able to like move away the muck and show us there is a person underneath, man. That's what keeps bringing me back time and time again. Excellent job from one writer to another.
Thanks so much, man. And it's like, I think one of the things is not thinking of the villains as villains while I'm writing, although that's hard with Augie Smith. But I just think of all these, they're different opposing forces. I mean, somebody brought up to me the other day, because I'm a big fan of Annie Chang and Lachlan Monroe, who play Fitzgibbon and Song, the cops that are on the trail of Peacemaker. And I said something about them the other day, and somebody said, yeah, but they're kind of like villains because they're after Peacemaker. And I'm like, what? And somebody said it today about Judo Master. Judo Master is a villain on Twitter. And I'm like, he's a villain? I'm like, oh, I guess he is. To me, he's not. I mean, he's got his reasons for doing things. And, and Annie and Sophie Song and Fitzgibbon especially have their reasons for doing things. So I just think of them as all these opposing forces that have different desires that move against each other, And for the show itself, I don't even really 100% think of it as, I think of the superhero costumes are just the gravy, because it really is about, my version of Adrian Chase, my version of Christopher Smith, Amelia Harcourt, Leo Adebayo. It's about those people, and a couple of them happen to wear these costumes, which are kind of ridiculous, really. Vigilante looks kind of cool. Peacemaker, he's got these little challenges in the coolness department.
I can't tell you how beautiful I thought his sustaining rationale for like, there's not a dove of peace on the gun, man. Like how important it was. Like the mythology he built for himself, which is like, that's what makes it okay to do these horrible things. That's some beautiful writing. Let's talk about, for one of the last things is, and it's the thing that seems to have captured the imagination of people who haven't even perhaps watched the show yet, is your opening credit sequence. You defeating the skip button by putting together one of the most compelling opening sequences to a TV show since Laverne and Shirley, for heaven's sake, since we watched them skip down to Shamil Shamazel. Where'd you get the idea, man? Where did you know early on? Was it the kind of self-challenge?
I mean, one of the things that excited me about doing the show was there's no rules. I mean, there's no rules whatsoever. They were going to let me do whatever, So I'm like, I wanted a dance sequence. I did a movie called Super, and I have an animated dance sequence at the beginning of that isn't so different from this version. But in this, I had a budget and an ability to do it live action. So I wanted a way to tell first of all, I wanted people to be able to see the names at the beginning and not skip over all those, Fred Raskin, the editor, and Greg Diaria and Greg Featherman, our other editors, and, all the people that worked so hard on the show, and not to be able to skip over their names, but also to let people know, don't think you know what you're seeing. Don't think this is, another R-rated superhero show. Don't think this is just this. Don't think it's that. Open your mind. It can be anything, and there are no rules here. Let's just go along for the ride. And so that was what I wanted to get across, with the opening credits.
Whole sequence is brilliant and fun to watch. But for me, the big moment is Myrn and Harcourt come out. For some reason, that's the shot that I'm drawn to. They are so perfectly in
that's
sync.
That's the best. Yeah.
But the whole thing is absolute
it's also good.
Joy.
Jen has these great arms, and she's an amazing dancer. So she's the one person that Carissa Barton, who choreographed that bit, she gave Jen a little bit more to do than some of the other people, because she's actually able to dance. John's a little bit more. He's got his simple things that he's doing.
But it absolutely works, and I'm so fascinated by why it starts when it starts, like 5 beats in. Was that you going like, I know I'm going to end the cold opening with the opening chords of that song, so I got to leave myself space.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Fantastic.
It's fun talking to you about this stuff, because nobody mentions that sort of stuff.
I love it. Makes me so happy to see him standing there for the first 2 seconds of music without moving. And at first I was like, is that a creative choice? And then I was like, it has to be him trying to figure out in advance. And I love it. The other thing about the ending, did you know you were going to hold on them for 3 seconds so that you see people being people? That is brilliance, absolute
Yeah.
brilliance and bliss. It's so human, man. Because first you're sitting there going, that's pretty fucking impressive. But then when you see everybody like, it binds you those characters.
My favorite thing about I like the Olympics and I like ice skating performances and stuff. But there's always that moment at the end of the ice skating performance
where they're frozen. Yes.
And sometimes they're happy because they just kicked ass, and other times, they're beating the shit out of themselves because they didn't do very well. But they got to sit there with that smile and the out of breath and that little moment of humanity. It is one of my favorite things in ice skating.
What do you think Peacemaker's mom would be like?
Well, I think about it a lot, actually. I think a lot about her mom. We don't get into about his mom. We don't get into his mom now, but listen, she can't be the greatest person in the world if she fucked Augie. We know that. So who knows?
Season 2. Does Peacemaker remind you of any character outside the DC universe from like a book, play, show, or film? Can you find a Shakespearean parallel for Chris?
Well, I don't know about a Shakespearean, but one of the things that was a big influence on me is, do you remember the Reb Brown Captain America TV movie?
Yes.
So I thought, I saw that as a kid. I thought it was the greatest thing of all time. I thought it was great. So my memory of the Reb Brown Captain America is sort of what I was doing. I was like, what if that was really fucked up and raunchy? That version of Captain America, that's what started my excitement about doing a Peacemaker TV show.
That's tremendous, man. If Peacemaker was assessed by a psychologist, what do you think the diagnosis would be?
Well, he definitely has OCD. I think for me, I have OCD. So it's like that stuff with the dove is classic, can't leave home without it sort of stuff. But I think that he probably has. We actually get into a little bit of that, later on, and Leota talks about it at some point. But he's definitely got some conspiratorial, paranoid beliefs, and I think that makes sense that he would have some of those, sort of paranoid beliefs. Having his father in his early structure, his early framework as a child, being that completely untrustable situation, I think would set him up for that sort of belief pattern as an adult. Not only that, his dad obviously is a conspiracy believer. So,
and you're telling like a father-son story, and you're telling a low-key mother-daughter story too, as she has to find out that everybody regards her mother as this like monster who has no regard for human life.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that brings them. They both have these parents who couldn't seem more different, like this Black powerful woman who's like amazing at what she does, and this old white racist dude. But they're both really power hungry and are both very powerful people and overbearing on their children. So there are some similarities for Leota with her mother and Peacemaker with his relationship to his father. And I think that bonds them a little bit.
Their last one they gave me was, what do you think the Peacemaker would talk to his therapist about if he had one?
I think that Peacemaker, if he went to therapy, would probably just go into long diatribes about the different people he's had sex with and the kind of sex he had. And I think he would try to stay out of his feelings as much as possible and talk about his sexual exploits. The guy's a sexual omnivore. And I think that's his sort of obsession and the thing he does to, escape from reality. Also, maybe he might talk about the history of heavy metal a little bit. He gets into that a little bit further on down in the episodes.
The heavy metal soundtrack is a Jersey kid's dream come true. A Jersey kid who grew up in the 80s dream come true. It's fantastic. I can't wait to watch the rest. I can't wait to see it more. It feels like it's something that you could return to again and again and again. I hope this ain't a one and done thing. Because
we all want to do that. So we're all, John and me and the whole crew, we're all into it. So
this is the highest compliment I could possibly pay it. I never watch it and go, fuck, it should have been me. I watch it and go, fuck, this was made for me. Like,
thanks, man.
It really feels like a show that, like, oh my God, like, had I never made a thing in life, this would be the show that I put everything down for, because that's the show I'm putting everything down for now. It's pitch perfect, man. I'm absolutely loving what you did. So glad you do it. Thank you for doing it. Keep making that piece. Keep guarding that galaxy, my friend.
I will, Kevin. Thank you, man.
Isn't he a great guy?
It seems that's the case. I've never met him. I've always wanted to meet him. I feel like I kind of did.
Talented, lovely fucking dude, man. And he, like, you know, we didn't hit this gong very hard, but he was making a motion picture or working on a motion picture. I don't know if they're shooting it, like a mere 20 minutes before we spoke. He's in Atlanta, you know, guarding that galaxy, if you will.
For the third time.
Good dude. And I can't say enough good things about Peacemaker. He's telling a story I never seen told in this space with these characters, with comic book characters, particularly in this medium. You know, maybe in comic books, somebody was clever enough to tell this story, but he's doing the Lord's work, man. It's a great show. Check out Peacemaker on HBO Max every Thursday until they take it away from you. And then hopefully they bring it back for another season. That's how these things work, hopefully. That's it for this very special edition of Fat Man Beyond, man. I'm Kevin Smith.
I'm Marc Bernardin.
Tune in next week. Same fat time, same fat channel. Smodcast.com or
YouTube.com/Kevin Smith.
We offer you a Jeff's kiss.
Mwah.
This is the cat. Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the AKA Ask Kev Anything. Every saga has a 10-year anniversary, ladies and gentlemen, and this is what happens when Jay and Silent Bob get old. I'm Kevin Smith. Kissing you!